The night was cold, a small stable in Bethlehem. Animals stirred in the darkness, and a baby was born. Not in a palace, not with fanfare, not surrounded by guards or servants, just Mary, Joseph, and the quiet presence of God breaking into humanity. This was the king. But no one recognized him. The world expected a conqueror, someone who'd overthrow Rome, restore Israel's glory, rule with power and military might. Instead, God sent a child, born to peasants, laid in a feeding trough. Announced to shepherds, the humblest entrance imaginable. He grew in obscurity, 30 years of silence, working as a carpenter, living in Nazareth, a town so insignificant people mocked it. Can anything good come from Nazareth? But when he finally stepped into public ministry, everything changed. Not through violence, not through political maneuvering. Through words, through miracles, through a message that challenged everything the powerful held dear. The kingdom of God is at hand, not a kingdom of swords, a kingdom of hearts, not through conquest, through transformation, not by force, by love. The religious establishment didn't know what to do with him. The political powers watched nervously, and ordinary people, they were drawn to him like starving people to bread, because he offered something no one else could. Hope, freedom, forgiveness, life. The king had come, but he came differently than anyone expected. And that difference would cost him everything. Matthew 1-2. The world wasn't ready. How could it be? For centuries, Israel had waited for a Messiah, a deliverer, someone who'd break Roman chains, restore David's throne, make Israel great again. They'd imagined armies, battles, victory, political revolution. What they got was a teacher, a healer, a man who touched lepers, ate with sinners, challenged religious leaders, spoke about love and forgiveness. Love your enemies? That wasn't warrior talk. Turn the other cheek? That wasn't revolution. The first will be last? That threatened the entire social order. The religious elite, Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, watched him with growing alarm. He questioned their authority, exposed their hypocrisy, called them whitewashed tombs, beautiful outside, dead inside. He healed on the Sabbath, forgave sins, something only God could do, claimed to be one with the Father. It was blasphemy, or truth. And if it was truth, their entire system was threatened. Rome watched too. Any talk of kingdom made them nervous. Any gathering of crowds raised suspicion. Any person claiming authority was a potential revolutionary. They'd crucified thousands for less. So Jesus walked a tightrope, bringing a kingdom, but not the one anyone expected. Claiming to be king, but not through conquest, offering salvation, but not from Rome, from sin, from death, from separation from God. The message was radical, dangerous, revolutionary, not politically, spiritually, and both religious and political powers recognized the threat. This man had to be stopped, before he changed everything, before people actually believed him, before the revolution of love replaced the systems of power. But how do you stop someone who won't fight back? Matthew 23, John 5:18. The crowds gathered everywhere he went, hillsides packed with thousands, synagogues
The
overflowing.
world was not ready.
Streets blocked, people climbing trees just to see him because his words were different. You have heard it said, but I say to you, he spoke with authority, not quoting endless rabbis, not hiding behind tradition, just truth. Clear, powerful, undeniable. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Wait, the poor are blessed. That's backwards. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Mourning is a blessing. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. The meek? Not the strong? Everything was inverted, upside down, challenging every assumption about power, success, and blessing. He taught about forgiveness, not just once, not just for small offenses, 70 times 7. Unlimited, radical, impossible, unless you understood grace. He taught about love, not just for friends, for enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Not curse them. Pray for them. He taught about the Father, not distant, not angry, not waiting to punish, but running to embrace, celebrating return, lavishing love. The religious taught law. Jesus taught grace. They taught ritual. He taught relationship. They taught exclusion. He taught inclusion. And people who'd felt condemned their entire lives suddenly felt hope, seen, valued, loved. Tax collectors, prostitutes, lepers, outcasts, the broken, the rejected, the forgotten. They flocked to him. Not because he lowered standards, because he offered something they'd never experienced: unconditional love. transforming grace, a
Blessed are
second
those who hunger and
chance.
thirst for
The teachers of
righteousness,
the
for they
law
shall be
watched
filled.
and hated
Ask and
every
it will be given
moment
to you.
because
Seek
his
and you will
message
find.
threatened their
Blessed are
control,
those who
their
hunger and thirst for
power, their
righteousness,
entire
for they shall be
system.
filled.
Matthew
Ask and
5
it
to
will be
7.
given to you. Seek and you will
But it
find.
wasn't just words. The miracles were undeniable. A man born blind healed. 38 years paralyzed walking. Lepers cleansed with a touch. Demons cast out with a word. The sick made whole. The broken made new. 5,000 people fed with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Not just fed, satisfied. 12 baskets of leftovers. A widow's son raised from death. Jairus' daughter called back to life. Lazarus, dead 4 days, walking out of his tomb. Creation itself obeyed him. Storms calmed at his command. Water turned to wine. He walked on water, defied gravity, transcended physical laws, because he wasn't just a man. He was God in flesh, and the miracles proved it. What kind of man is this? Even the wind and waves obey him. The question spread everywhere. Who was he really? A prophet? More than a prophet. A teacher? Unlike any teacher they'd known. The Messiah? But Messiahs were supposed to conquer. Not heal, fight, not feed, kill enemies, not raise the dead. Yet the miracles created belief. This must be the Christ. The prophets spoke of him. No one has ever done such things. Hope swelled. Maybe, just maybe, deliverance was coming. But the miracles also created fear. Among the powerful, among those whose positions depended on maintaining control. Because if Jesus really was who he claimed to be, everything changed. Roman authority, irrelevant compared to divine power. Religious systems exposed as empty. Social structures, challenged by a kingdom where the last are first. The miracles were evidence, proof of deity, validation of his message, but they also painted a target on his back. Because people this powerful don't get ignored, they get eliminated. John 11, Matthew 14, Mark 4. The Sanhedrin met in secret, the ruling council of Israel, 70 of the most powerful religious leaders, high priests, scribes, elders, Pharisees. They gathered in chambers far from public eyes and discussed one problem: Jesus. This man is performing many signs, Caiaphas the high priest said. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him. That was the fear. Not that he was false, that he was convincing. Then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation. It was a political calculation, not spiritual, not about truth, about power, about preservation, about control. What if he really is the Messiah? One voice dared to ask. Silence, cold stares. Messiahs don't befriend sinners, someone spat. They don't break Sabbath. They don't challenge our authority. So they concluded he must be stopped, not debated, not evaluated honestly, stopped. But he's done nothing worthy of death, another protested. He's claiming to be God, Caiaphas replied. That's blasphemy, punishable by death. The people love him. Then we move carefully, quietly, wait for the right moment. They began plotting, watching for mistakes, looking for witnesses they could bribe, searching for a way to turn public opinion, to make his death seem necessary, justified, even righteous. Meanwhile, Jesus knew, he'd always known, but he continued teaching, healing, loving, not because he was unaware, because the mission mattered more than safety. The cross was coming, he could see it, feel it, but the path led there, had to lead there. For purposes the religious leaders couldn't comprehend, even as they plotted his murder. John 11:47. But to his followers, he was everything. Peter, James, Nat, John, fishermen who'd left nets to follow him. Matthew, a tax collector who'd abandoned wealth. Mary Magdalene, delivered from demons, a ragtag group. No education, no power, no influence, just devotion. They'd seen the miracles, heard the teachings, witnessed transformation, and they believed. You are the Christ, Peter had declared, the Son of the living God. Jesus had smiled. Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. The revelation was growing, among ordinary people, not religious elite, not political powers, common people, who'd heard truth and recognized it, who'd experienced love and responded, who'd been changed and couldn't go back. They called him Rabbi, teacher, master, Lord, King, not officially, not publicly yet, but in their hearts, he was their king, the one they'd follow anywhere, do anything for, give everything to. They didn't fully understand. Didn't grasp the mission completely, still expected earthly kingdom, political revolution, visible throne, but they knew one thing: he was worth following. Even when they didn't understand, even when it was dangerous, even when crowds turned hostile, because something about him was different, true, real. His words brought life, His presence brought peace. His love brought healing. And once you've encountered that, once you've tasted real freedom, you can't walk away. Won't walk away. These ordinary followers would become the foundation of a movement that would outlast Rome, outlast every kingdom, outlast death itself. But first, they'd have to endure what was coming: the test, the betrayal, the cross. Matthew 16:13-20. The moment changed everything. Jesus rode into Jerusalem, not on a war horse, on a donkey, fulfilling ancient prophecy. See, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey. The crowds went wild. They'd been waiting for this. The Messiah entering the holy city. Finally, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the King of Israel. They threw cloaks on the road, cut palm branches, waved them frantically, shouted praises. It was coronation, celebration, declaration. The king had come, not secretly, publicly, undeniably. Children sang. Adults wept with joy. Hope exploded through Jerusalem. This is it. He's claiming the throne. The kingdom is coming. But Jesus knew. This same crowd would turn, these same voices would shout differently within days, crucify him. But for now, he received their praise. Not for ego, for prophecy, for mission, for the declaration that needed to happen. He was king. He was claiming the title, just not the way they expected. The religious leaders watched from windows, furious, terrified. Look how the whole world has gone after him. This was public rebellion, open challenge, undeniable claim. If they didn't act soon, they'd lose everything. Rome would intervene, the people would follow him, their power would evaporate. We must act, they whispered urgently, during the feast. Too risky. The people might riot, then after. But soon, the celebration continued. Palm branches waved, voices lifted. The king entered his city, riding toward a throne, but not the throne anyone imagined, a throne made of wood and blood and nails. The cross was waiting, and Jesus rode straight toward it. John 12:12-19, Zechariah 9:9. Rome watched from the fortress. Pontius Pilate, governor of Judea, received reports. A man rode into Jerusalem claiming to be king. How many soldiers does he have? None, just crowds with palm branches. Pilate frowned. That made no sense. Who is he? A teacher, from Nazareth. Performs miracles, supposedly. Another religious fanatic. This one's different. The people actually follow him. That got Pilate's attention. Religious zealots were common, but ones with real influence? Dangerous. Keep watching. Report anything unusual. Yes, Governor. Rome ruled through intimidation, brutal force, swift punishment. Any hint of rebellion crushed any talk of kingship. Death. No exceptions. They'd crucified thousands, lined roads with crosses, made examples constantly. To keep peace through fear. But this Jesus was subtle. No army, no weapons. No violent rhetoric, just teachings, miracles, crowds. Hard to justify execution. Hard to ignore growing influence. So they watched, waited, let the local authorities handle it, for now. The game was political, complicated, dangerous. The Jewish leaders wanted him dead, but needed Roman approval, needed to frame it as rebellion, treason, threat to Caesar. Rome didn't care about religious disputes, but threats to order, imperial authority, those were crushed immediately. So a silent war was happening. Political maneuvering, strategic positioning, various factions trying to use Jesus or eliminate him, while Jesus himself seemed unconcerned with politics, focused only on mission, on purpose, on the cross that was his destination. The political powers thought they controlled the situation. They didn't know God was orchestrating everything, using their schemes, turning their evil for redemption. Luke 23:15. The Sanhedrin intensified their plotting. Caiaphas called meetings, strategies discussed, problems analyzed. We can't arrest him publicly. The people will riot. Then we wait. Watch. Find the right moment. We need someone on the inside. Some close to him. Eyes turned. Minds calculated. Who could be turned? Who could be bought? Who among his followers might betray him? The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the 12, one who'd walked with Jesus. Heard the teachings, seen the miracles, claimed to believe. Judas Iscariot. He'd been the treasurer, managing finances, trusted with resources. But something had shifted. Maybe gradually, maybe suddenly. The love of money, the disillusionment with Jesus' peaceful approach, the realization that this kingdom wouldn't bring political power. Whatever the reason, his heart had turned. And the religious leaders noticed. They always notice vulnerability, always exploit weakness, always find the cracks. We could pay, one suggested. How much? 30 pieces of silver. Standard price for a slave. Insulting. Perfect, because it would expose Judas's true value system. Judas would accept, would betray infinite worth for finite coins, would exchange relationship with God for temporary wealth, would sell the Savior for the price of a slave. The deal would be struck soon, in darkness, in secret, away from the other disciples. And once made, the machinery of death would begin moving. Unstoppable, inevitable, exactly as prophesied, exactly as planned, not by evil men, by a sovereign God, using betrayal for salvation, using murder for resurrection, using humanity's worst for heaven's best. Matthew 26:14-16, Zechariah 11 and 12-13. Judas looked normal, acted normal, no one suspected. He still followed Jesus, still performed his duties, still sat with the other disciples, but his heart had shifted, subtly, secretly, completely. Money had always been his weakness. He'd steal from the shared purse, small amounts, thinking no one noticed. Jesus noticed, always noticed, but said nothing. Gave space, gave opportunity, gave choice, because love doesn't force, can't force, won't force. Judas had to choose, and he chose money, chose power, chose self, over Jesus, over mission, over everything. It happened gradually, one compromise at a time, one justification building on another, one small betrayal leading to the ultimate one. I'm just being practical, he'd tell himself. Someone has to think about resources. Jesus is too idealistic. We need money to survive. The rationalizations multiplied, hardening his heart, closing his eyes, stopping his ears, until he could sit across from Jesus, share meals, hear teachings, see miracles, and still plan betrayal. That's the danger of gradual compromise, of small disobediences, of justified selfishness. You can be in Jesus' presence and miss him completely, can follow outwardly while rejecting internally, can claim faith while serving self. Judas proved it. 3 years with Jesus, and still chose silver, still valued coins over Christ, still betrayed love for greed. The religious leaders were ready, waiting, eager, and when Judas came to them, when he offered inside information, when he named his price, they agreed immediately. Too quickly, too eagerly, because evil always recognizes opportunity. And Judas, he'd just become evil's tool for 30 pieces of silver. John 12:4-6. The upper room was prepared, a large space, borrowed, private. Jesus gathered his 12 for a final meal. Before everything changed, he knew, had always known. But now the hour had come, time was running out. He looked at each disciple. Peter, impulsive, loyal, about to fail. John, beloved, faithful, would stay closest. James, zealous, passionate, didn't understand yet. And Judas, betrayer, thief, about to leave. Jesus' heart ached, but he didn't stop any of it, couldn't. The mission required it. They reclined, the meal began. Then Jesus spoke. Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me. Silence, shock, horror. Surely you don't mean me, Rabbi? Each asked, panicked, confused. Jesus dipped bread, handed it to Judas. What you are about to do, do quickly. Their eyes met. Jesus, sorrowful, knowing. Judas, defiant, hardened. Then Judas left. Into the night, toward betrayal, toward silver, toward death. The door closed, the room breathed, but the weight remained. Jesus turned to the remaining 11. A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. It was urgent, final, essential, because hours remained, not days, not weeks, hours. He broke bread. This is my body given for you. He lifted the cup. This is my blood, poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. They didn't fully understand, couldn't. The symbolism was too heavy, too prophetic, too immediate. But they'd remember. Later, after the cross, after the resurrection, they'd remember this meal. And understand tonight was goodbye and covenant and preparation for the darkest hours about to begin. Matthew 26:7-30. The disciples struggled. Jesus kept saying things that didn't make sense. I'm going away. Going where? You cannot follow me now. Why not? You will all fall away. Never. Peter especially protested. Even if all fall away, I will not. Jesus looked at him, sad, knowing. Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Never, Peter insisted. Even if I have to die with you. The others echoed. Bold declarations, sincere intentions, fragile promises, because they didn't know themselves yet, didn't know their weakness, didn't understand what was coming. Jesus tried to prepare them. In this world you will have trouble. They will arrest me, you will scatter. But they couldn't hear it, didn't want to hear it, couldn't comprehend a Messiah who'd be arrested, killed, defeated. That wasn't the script, wasn't the plan, wasn't what Messiahs did. So they resisted, denied, refused, while Jesus prepared for what they couldn't imagine, for suffering they couldn't understand, for sacrifice they couldn't comprehend. He tried to comfort them. Do not let your hearts be troubled. I am going to prepare a place for you. I will come back. But the words felt distant, abstract, compared to the immediate confusion, the fear creeping in, the sense that something terrible was approaching. Thomas asked, "Lord, we don't know where you are going." Philip said, "Show us the Father." They were lost, confused, afraid. And Jesus, patient, loving, knowing, tried to explain. "I am the way and the truth and the life. Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father." He was giving them everything they needed. For what was coming, they just didn't know it yet. John 13:14. After the meal, they walked to Gethsemane, a garden, quiet, dark, secluded. Jesus often went there to pray. Tonight felt different, heavier. "Sit here while I pray," he told most of the disciples. Then took Peter, James, and John further, his closest friends, his inner circle. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he said. His voice shook, his face pale. This was vulnerability, raw, unfiltered, the weight of what was coming crushing down. "Stay here and keep watch with me." He moved a bit further, fell face down, and prayed, not confident, not triumphant, desperate. "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me." The cup, the cross, the suffering, the separation, the bearing of all sin, all darkness, all death. He didn't want it. The horror was real. The pain anticipated. The cost understood. Yet not as I will, but as you will. Submission. Even through anguish, even through dread, even through desire to escape, he returned to the three, found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" Disappointed, but understanding, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He prayed again. Same words, same anguish, same submission. Returned, they were sleeping again. A third time, praying, sweating. Luke says his sweat became like drops of blood, hematidrosis, extreme stress, physical manifestation of spiritual agony. An angel appeared, strengthened him, because the battle was real, the choice genuine, the cost unbearable. But he chose, again, to drink the cup, to walk to the cross, to embrace death, for humanity, for salvation, for love. Matthew 26:46. Torches appeared in the darkness, voices, footsteps, many of them. Judas led the way. Behind him, soldiers. Temple guards. Weapons. He approached Jesus, smiled, betrayed him with a kiss, the agreed signal, identifying which man to arrest, in the dark, in the confusion. So, they wouldn't grab the wrong person. "Friend," Jesus said to Judas, "do what you came for." Not with hatred, with sadness, still calling him friend, even in betrayal. The guards moved forward, grabbed Jesus. Peter panicked, drew a sword, swung, cut off the high priest's servant's ear. "Put your sword away," Jesus commanded. "Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" Then he touched the servant's ear, healed it, even now, even during his arrest, still bringing healing, still showing love. The disciples watched, terrified, confused. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The Messiah wasn't supposed to be arrested, wasn't supposed to surrender, wasn't supposed to lose. One by one they ran, scattered into the night. Peter and John followed from a distance, trying to stay close, trying to be brave, failing at both. Jesus stood alone, hands bound, surrounded by enemies, the people he'd come to save, arresting him, the creation he'd made, rejecting him, the world he'd loved, condemning him. He could have stopped at one word and legions of angels would have descended, one thought and the soldiers would have dropped, one choice and everything could have changed. But he didn't. Chose not to. Because the arrest was necessary, the trial required, the cross essential for the mission, for salvation, for us. So he let them bind him, lead him away, begin the process of murder that would become redemption. 11. They brought him to the high priest, to Caiaphas. The religious court assembled in the middle of the night, illegally, desperately. They needed charges, something worthy of death. So they brought witnesses, false ones, paid, coached, lying. He said he would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Misquoting, twisting, distorting. Jesus said nothing, just stood, silent, dignified, watching humanity condemn divinity. Finally, Caiaphas stood, frustrated. "Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony that these men are bringing against you?" Silence. Then Caiaphas asked the question, the only question that mattered. "I charge you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." The room held its breath, everything balanced on the answer. Deny, and he'd be released. Affirm, and he'd be condemned. Jesus spoke, clearly, undeniably. "You have said so, but I say to all of you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." It was done. The claim made, the declaration spoken. Not just Messiah, God, equal with the Father, coming in judgment. Caiaphas tore his robes. "Blasphemy! Why do we need any more witnesses? You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? He is worthy of death." They spat on him, hit him, mocked him. "Prophesy to us, Messiah. Who hit you?" The religious leaders, guardians of truth, rejecting truth himself. The teachers of law, breaking every law. The priests, offering God as a sacrifice. The irony was complete, the tragedy profound. The king stood trial before subjects, and they condemned him for being exactly who he was. Matthew 26, verse 57-68. Morning came. They led him to Pilate, because the Jews couldn't execute anyone. Roman law. Roman authority. Roman approval needed. So they made it political. "We have found this man subverting our nation. He opposes payment of taxes to Caesar and claims to be Messiah, a king." Lies. All lies, but effective. Pilate questioned him. "Are you the king of the Jews?" "You have said so," Jesus replied. Pilate found nothing wrong. "I find no basis for a charge against him." But the crowd was shouting. The priests were insisting. The political pressure, mounting. Pilate sent him to Herod. Herod sent him back. Neither wanted responsibility, but the crowd demanded blood. "Crucify him." "Why? What crime has he committed?" "Crucify him." Pilate tried to release him, offered a choice. "Which prisoner do you want released, Jesus or Barabbas?" Barabbas was a murderer, a revolutionary, a criminal. Surely they'd choose Jesus. They chose Barabbas. Then what shall I do with Jesus? "Crucify him." The people who'd waved palm branches, who'd shouted Hosanna, now screaming crucify. The fickleness of crowds, the weakness of public opinion, the danger of mob mentality. Pilate washed his hands. Literally. "I am innocent of this man's blood," but he wasn't. No one was. The soldiers took Jesus, stripped him, put a scarlet robe on him, made a crown of thorns, pushed it onto his head. Blood ran down his face. They put a staff in his hand like a scepter, knelt before him, mocking, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Then they beat him, spit on him, struck him, the king, crowned with thorns, robed in mockery, humiliated, rejected, condemned, for the crime of being himself. Matthew 27:11-31. 17. The beating was brutal. Roman soldiers were experts at inflicting pain. 39 lashes with a whip, embedded with bone and metal, each strike tearing flesh. Isaiah had prophesied it centuries before. "He was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed." Every lash, payment for sin. Every wound, covering for humanity. Every drop of blood, washing away guilt. They didn't know. Couldn't know. Thought they were just punishing a criminal. Didn't realize they were participating in redemption. The crowd watched. Some turned away, couldn't bear the sight. Others jeered, mocked, encouraged. Humanity at its worst. The religious leaders watched, satisfied. Finally, the threat was being eliminated. The troublemaker, destroyed. The one who'd exposed their hypocrisy, silenced. But as Jesus hung there, bleeding, broken, beaten beyond recognition, he didn't curse them, didn't condemn them, didn't call down judgment, just endured. For them, for us, for salvation. The physical pain was immense, but the spiritual, worse. He was bearing sin, all of it, every lie, every murder, every betrayal, every compromise, every selfish act, all of humanity's darkness, crushing down on pure light, and it was killing him, not just physically, spiritually. The weight was unbearable. Yet he bore it, willingly, completely. Because love does that. Love suffers, love sacrifices, love gives everything, even when rejected, even when mocked, even when it costs everything. The king, beaten for his subjects, who deserved the beating, not him. Isaiah 53:5. They gave him a cross, heavy, splintered, rough, made him carry it through Jerusalem's streets. The Via Dolorosa, the way of suffering. He stumbled, fell, couldn't carry it alone. They grabbed someone from the crowd, Simon of Cyrene, forced him to help. The crowd lined the streets. Some wept, women mourned. Jesus turned to them. "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, weep for yourselves and for your children." Because judgment was coming. Not on him, on the city that rejected him. He knew, saw the future. The Romans would destroy Jerusalem, 40 years later, the temple demolished, the people scattered, the nation shattered, all because they'd rejected their king. Now he walked toward Golgotha, the place of the skull, where criminals were executed, where Rome displayed its power, where Jesus would die. The cross was a symbol of shame, curse, rejection, the worst death imaginable, not just physical torture, social humiliation, spiritual separation. Cursed is everyone who hangs on a pole. Jesus was becoming curse for us, taking our shame, our rejection, our separation, bearing it, so we wouldn't have to. They reached the hill, laid the cross down, positioned Jesus on it. He didn't resist, didn't fight, just submitted. Stretched out his arms, willingly. The soldiers lifted hammers, positioned nails against his wrists, his feet, and drove them through, into wood, into flesh, into bone. The king, nailed to a tree, lifted up between heaven and earth, rejected by both for a moment, so both could be reconciled forever. The burden he carried up that hill wasn't just wood, it was sin, death, separation, everything that stood between God and humanity. He carried it all to the cross, and there it would be finished. Luke 23:26-33. They crucified him at Golgotha, between two criminals, one on his right, one on his left, even in death, associated with sinners. Above his head they posted a sign, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews, in 3 languages, Hebrew, Latin, Greek, the charge, the truth, the mockery, the reality. The religious leaders protested, "Don't write the King of the Jews, but that this man claimed to be King of the Jews." Pilate refused. "What I have written, I have written." Because it was true, he was king, even dying, especially dying. Because kingship isn't just power, it's sacrifice, not just ruling, serving, not just taking, giving. The king proved his kingship on a cross. The crowd mocked, he saved others, but he can't save himself. They didn't understand, he could save himself, chose not to. Because saving himself meant losing us. Let this Messiah, this King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe. But they wouldn't have believed, wouldn't have understood. Because faith doesn't come from avoiding suffering, from bypassing pain, from escaping sacrifice. Faith comes from embracing it, for others. One criminal joined the mockery, the other didn't. "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus turned to him, promised him, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Salvation. In the final moments, for a criminal who believed when religious leaders didn't. Darkness came. Suddenly, completely, at noon, the sky went black for 3 hours. Creation mourned, the sun hid its face, heaven couldn't watch, God bearing sin, light crushed by darkness, life swallowed by death. For a moment that would change eternity. My God, why have you forsaken me?" The cry pierced the darkness, not blasphemy, scripture, Psalm 22, prophesied, now fulfilled, but also real, true separation. The Father turning away from the Son bearing sin, the only moment in eternity when the Trinity experienced separation. Not internal, external, because holiness and sin cannot coexist. And Jesus, holy, perfect, pure, was covered in sin, our sin, all of it. So the Father had to turn away, had to let him experience separation, death, hell. In that moment, Jesus tasted what we deserved, experienced what rebellion costs, bore what justice demanded. Then, "I am thirsty," physical, human, real. They offered sour wine, he took it. "It is finished." 3 words, changed everything. The debt paid, the law fulfilled, the sacrifice complete. Sin defeated, death conquered, separation ended, the mission accomplished. "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And he died. Not killed, not defeated. He gave up his spirit, chose the moment, controlled the end. The curtain in the temple tore, top to bottom, God's hand, not men. The barrier between holy and common ripped, access granted, relationship restored. The earth shook, rocks split, tombs opened, creation responded to Creator's death. Even the centurion watching, Roman, pagan, skeptical, declared, "Surely this man was the Son of God." Because something about this death was different. This wasn't failure, this was victory. This wasn't tragedy, this was triumph. This wasn't the end, this was the beginning. The king had died, but his kingdom just starting. The grave couldn't hold him. Death couldn't defeat him. 3 days, and everything would change. Again. Matthew 27:54, John 19:28-30.